Hi everybody, it's time for Rogues Reads. And I sat down on the floor. He was actually taking a nap. I sat down on the floor here to get ready and he just came running over. Seeing as when I sit here on the floor, I will scratch his head. Are you ready for your book? Yeah, I'm worried about Coke and Pepsi. Yep, that'll be good. He thinks I need to scratch him the whole time. That's probably not going to happen. All right, hi guys, that was Rogue. I'm Miss Renee. I'm the children's librarian at Salem Public Library in Salem, Ohio. And this is Rogues Reads, our virtual book club for kids in 4th to 8th grade. And, I think Daisy Ray's right behind me. She just knocked her little alien toy down. There's your alien. Right, so it is Thursday. I'm actually recording on Thursday. It is beautiful outside, so if you need to delay watching this video so you can go outside and play in the sunshine, please do it. Sunshine's good for us. We are still reading The Genius Files by Dan Gutman. This is book 2, Never Say Genius. So a big thank you to Dan Gutman and HarperCollins Publishing for letting us use this book this way. And let's see. They had left, where did we leave off yesterday? Oh, yes. Coke and Pep decided that they just needed to go home, because if they go home, then the Genius Files guys, they're on their way to Washington. They won't bother them if they just go home. So they try to talk their parents into it, and Mom and Dad said, no, because sometimes, you can try your hardest to talk your parents into something and they're still just going to say no. Because, grown-ups sometimes get to be the boss. Actually, most of the time they get to be the boss. So, they are in Ohio. They're on their way to Washington, D.C. for their aunt's wedding, who they haven't seen in 10 years. And so they are headed out so they're driving across the northern part of Ohio, and there's lots of cool stuff to see there. So let's see what crazy adventures they get into here in our home state. The Genius Files, Never Say Genius. This is book 2 with chapter 10, On the Road to Paradise. Ohio is about 250 miles across. It would be a long day. Pep opened her book about circus animals. Coke fiddled with an empty Pez dispenser, which his mother had bought for him at the Museum of Pez Memorabilia back in California. It reminded him of home. Where are we going now? Coke asked glumly as they pulled out of the campground's parking lot. The Pencil Sharpener Museum? How did you know there was a pencil sharpener museum in Ohio? Asked Mrs. McDonald. It was a lucky guess, Coke said, slipping the Pez dispenser into his back pocket. Well, I have good news for you, Mrs. McDonald announced. We are not going to the Pencil Sharpener Museum, and we are not going to the Paperweight Museum, or the National Construction Equipment Museum, or the Merry-Go-Round Museum, or the Bicycle Museum of America, or the Annie Oakley Museum, or even the Cardboard Boat Museum. Personally, I would love to visit all those wonderful Ohio landmarks. Here's your tip. If you have been to any of those places, please tell me about them, because I want to know about them. I've not been to any of those. So where are we going, Pep asked. Today, we're going someplace just for you, Dr. McDonald told the kids. We're going to Cedar Point. I love Cedar Point. Cedar Point, Pep asked. What kind of a museum is that? It sounds like the name of a mental institution, Coke remarked. Cedar Point happens to be the greatest amusement park in the world, Dr. McDonald replied, grinning broadly, and it's in Sandusky, Ohio. Really? Pep screamed, jumping out of her seat to wrap her arms around her parents. I love you! There are great amusement parks in California, of course. Six Flags, SeaWorld, Disneyland. But Sandusky, Ohio is almost sacred ground for roller coaster fanatics around the world. Its first coaster was built back in 1892, and now Cedar Point is filled with them. And they are among the tallest and fastest in the world. And both of the twins love thrill rides. The scarier, the better. Dr. McDonald popped a piece of gum into his mouth and an AC/DC disc into the CD player. It always amazed him that one of his favorite rock bands of his youth was also loved by his children. Turn it up, Cook shouted over the music. He liked his music loud. The louder, the better. Dr. McDonald followed the local roads until he reached Route 24 East, which he stayed on for a long 55 miles. By that time, stomachs had started growling, and it was decided unanimously to stop off for lunch well before they got to Cedar Point. It's not a good idea to ride a roller coaster on a full stomach. Dr. McDonald pulled off the road at Toledo, where he saw a truck advertising a hot dog restaurant called Tony Paco's. Oh, I've been to Tony Paco's. Bite the best, it said on the side of the truck. He couldn't resist. Holy Toledo, Coke said as they walked into Tony Paco's. The walls of the restaurant were covered with plaques, each one bearing a hot dog bun that had been autographed by a famous person. Jerry Seinfeld, George W. Bush, Bing Crosby, Patti LaBelle, Clinton Black. There were 500 of them. This place is like a hot dog museum, Mrs. McDonald said, reaching for her camera. Tony Paco's would be perfect for Amazing But True. They found an empty table, and the waitress, an older woman, came over. What'll it be, folks? She asked. Hot dogs, all four replied. Good choice. The kids walked around examining the autographed buns on the wall, but it wasn't long before their hot dogs arrived, so they rushed back to their table. Coke was about to bite into his hot dog when he decided to put some ketchup on it. As he opened up the bun, this is what he saw burned into it. Oh no, it's another cipher. Oh no, he said to himself. He quickly scanned the restaurant, then glanced over at the other buns on the table. Nobody else's bun had weird symbols burned into it. Without saying a word, Coke showed the bun to his sister. She raised her eyebrows. Memorize it, Pep whispered in his ear. I already did. The cipher committed to memory, Coke doused the dog with ketchup and destroyed the evidence by eating it. Back on the road to Cedar Point after lunch, the twins huddled together in the back of the RV as Coke wrote down the symbols he had seen on his hot dog bun. It's indecipherable, he whispered. Every cipher is decipherable, Pep whispered back. That's why they're called ciphers. And this one actually is easily decipherable. It uses the Ogham alphabet. The what? It was a medieval alphabet used in Scotland, or in Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, she said as she began writing it out. How can you possibly know that? Coke asked. The same way you know worthless trivia like the 4 things that were invented in Ohio, she replied. Pep finished writing out the Ogham alphabet. Oh, that's actually really interesting. I didn't know this one at all. So there it is. How do you decode it? Coke asked. The first symbol, the 2 lines dropping straight down, represents the letter G. Pep said. See, it's followed by an R. The next 2 lines are the same. E, and after that is an N. So the first word is green. No, it's not, Coke whispered. He had already figured out the next 5 letters. Sporo. The first word is Greensboro. Stop. Together, they figured out the next 5 letters. Lunch. They puzzled over that for a moment before decoding the rest of the message. Counter. Greensboro lunch counter. Does that mean anything to you? Pep whispered to his sister. No. Pep replied. Yo, parental units, Coke cried out to the front of the RV. If I say the words Greensboro lunch counter, what comes to mind? Greensboro, North Carolina, 1960, Dr. McDonald replied right away. 4 African-American students sat at a lunch counter where only whites were allowed to sit. It was one of the defining moments of the civil rights movement. Are we going to North Carolina on this trip? Pep whispered to her brother. I don't think so, he replied. Coke and Pep looked at each other and shrugged. Why do you ask about the Greensboro lunch counter? Asked Dr. McDonald. Oh, we just decoded a secret message that had been burned into my hot dog bun, Coke replied. It said Greensboro lunch counter. Very funny, Mrs. McDonald said. You kids have such vivid imaginations. Pep turned to a clean page in her notebook and started a list. July 3rd, 2 p.m., Greensboro lunch counter. Maybe we'll get another cipher. It will all make sense, she whispered. It was another 55 miles to Sandusky on the shores of Lake Erie. The McDonald's pulled into the Cedar Point parking lot just before noon. Coke usually took his backpack with him wherever he went, but his mother told him to leave it in the RV. She didn't want to see it flying off of a roller coaster. While their parents waited in line to buy tickets, Coke and Pep looked around with wonder. There were 17 roller coasters here, one of the largest collections in the world. Cedar Point also had 15 thrill rides, a dozen water slides, parasailing, shows, music, and all the junk food you could eat. It was paradise. Now remember that this one is about 9 years old, and I don't know if that's the number is right now, if it's still 17 roller coasters. It's actually been a while since I've been there. So maybe that's something we should look up. How many roller coasters does Cedar Point have? This would make up for everything they had endured to get here. For the first time in a long time, thoughts of evil health teachers, psychos wearing bowler hats, Archie Clone, and Dr. Herman Warsaw vanished from their minds. I think this place is heaven, Coke said in awe. Can we get ice cream, Pep asked. Sure, Dr. McDonald agreed, but don't you want to ride the roller coasters first? Yeah! I don't like being upside down, Mrs. McDonald announced. I'm going to stick with the wimpy rides. I'll hang with Mom, said Dr. McDonald. You kids go have fun. Keep in touch with us on your cell phones. If you, dear reader, have been following the Genius Files closely, you may have noticed by now that whenever the twins go off on their own without their parents, someone tries to kill them. Uncanny, isn't it? Unfortunately, Coke and Pep have yet to notice this phenomenon. Foolishly, they waved goodbye and went off in search of thrills, and they would find them. The twins examined the park map to plan their amusement park strategy. If you're going to an amusement park, you have to have an amusement park strategy, right? They would avoid all the kiddie rides and wimpy rides, of course. The thrill rides and water stuff would be fun to do, but Coke and Pep decided to hold off on them. If the lines were too long, they might only get to a limited number of rides during the day. Cedar Point was famous for its coasters, so they should concentrate on them first. If there was time later, they could hit the other stuff. It was a solid plan. The lines are manageable. First, they rode the corkscrew, which turns you upside down 3 times. That's a fun one. I like that one. Then they got their brains fully scrambled. They got in line for the top thrill dragster, which reaches speeds of 120 miles an hour. I've not done that one. Hearts racing, they made their way to Millennium Force, which tops out at 310 feet up in the air. That's a good one. They survived Mantis, where you have to stand up the whole time. Mantis doesn't exist anymore. Mantis has been replaced by something else. I can't remember. It's one of the newer ones. They did Gemini. They did Magnum XL 200. They were dizzy with euphoria. And as they were walking down the ramp after Magnum XL 200, Coke sent a text to his mom. This is the greatest day of my life. Thanks for giving birth to me. I hate to bring this up, Pep said as they headed for the next coaster, but I have a feeling that somebody's following us. What? Coke said, are you kidding me? There are thousands of people here. What could they do? If somebody was going to try something, they would have made their move by now. But Pep was usually right about her feelings. Coke looked around and scoped out the area. They were near another coaster, one called Disaster Transport. Come on, he told Pep. Let's duck in here. All right, Disaster Transport does not exist anymore, but I loved that coaster when it was up and running. There was no line at Disaster Transport, and soon the twins were sitting in a little car, getting seatbelted in by a teenage girl with a nose ring. The seat in front of theirs was empty. Coke glanced behind as a precaution. Nobody was sitting in that seat either. They were safe. The car was nestled in a U-shaped trough, kind of like a bobsled in the Olympics. Have fun, the girl with the nose ring said as their car started inching forward. The twins were in total darkness almost immediately, except for 2 rows of white lights on the left and right walls. Then the lights disappeared and they couldn't see a thing. The coaster took its first big dip and Pep screamed. Coke held on tightly. In the dark, they couldn't tell when the next curve would be or when the next plunge would be. And that was what made Disaster Transport so terrifying. The car went through a series of twisting turns and then, suddenly, for no reason, it screeched to a halt. They were sitting in total darkness, not moving. It looked something like this. Just completely black. Disaster Transport was completely inside a building. You never went outside during this ride. So it actually was very, very dark. They had lots of lights, though. I liked it. I thought it was a good coaster. What's going on? Pep asked nervously. Relax, Coke told his sister. This is probably part of the ride. They want you to think you'll be stuck here. I'm sure it'll start up again in a few seconds. It didn't. Dark, tunnel, underground, silence. Pep didn't like this situation. Do you think it's a mechanical problem? She asked, looking all around to see if she could see a crack of light anywhere. Her eyes were starting to adjust to the dark. We should tell somebody. And that's when she heard a muffled cough coming from the car behind them. Hello, 2 voices said pleasantly. Pep thought frantically, hadn't that car been empty when the ride started? How did those people get in here? Could they have possibly climbed in during the ride? The 2 people in the car behind them pulled little flashlights out of their pockets and shined them upward at their own smiling faces. They were men. One of them had a mustache, and both were wearing bowler hats. Eek! Pep screamed. The bowler dudes! Holy, oh, there's a string of punctuation, so we're going to skip that word. Coke exclaimed. Long time no see, one of the bowler dudes said, a smile on his demented face. Fancy meeting you two here, in here of all places. Pep screamed again as Coke frantically tried to remove his seatbelt. Don't bother screaming, sweetheart, the mustachioed bowler dude said. Nobody will notice. Everybody screams in here. That's why we decided this would be the perfect place. The perfect place for what? Pep asked, not really wanting to hear the answer. The perfect place to kill you. Ha ha ha, chortled the other bowler dude. In the dark, Coke couldn't get his hands on the release button to his seatbelt. The bowler dudes climbed out of their car and strolled over as if they were taking a walk in the park. Eek! Pep screamed again. Help! Shouted Coke. Shut up! The bowler dudes pulled out long pocket knives and used them to cut through Coke and Pep's seatbelts. Then they pulled the twins to their feet. Get your hands off me, Coke shouted. I'll call the cops on you. The bowler dudes laughed their cackling laugh as if that was the funniest thing they had ever heard. The twins were dragged through the dark tunnel for about 10 yards until they reached a doorway. The bowler dudes pushed them through the door, across a short wooden walkway, and into another doorway that led to a dark room. There, they forced Coke and Pep into metal folding chairs and tied their arms behind their backs with rope. Have fun, one of them said as he flipped a light on. Both of the bowler dudes went back out the door they had entered, cackling the whole time. Coke and Pep looked around the small room. There were ice cream dispensers along the walls and posters with photos of ice cream pops on them. It didn't take a genius to figure out where they were. In the back of a Mr. Softy truck. You know what? I had bookmarked another chapter, but it's actually really long, so I think I am going to stop there for today. Why did the bowler dudes put them into an ice cream truck? That seems like a strange place to put them. And then just leave? Oh, Coke and Pep were having such a good day riding all those roller coasters. I know now this has happened. If you have been to Cedar Point in the last couple of years, that's the thing to say. So today your activities were to tell me if you've been to any of those weird museums: pencil sharpener, paperweight, construction equipment, merry-go-round, bicycle museum, Annie Oakley Museum, or cardboard boat. If you've been to any of those, please tell me about it because I want to know. Same with Tony Paco's, if you've ever eaten there. I actually have, and there really are buns on the walls. It's kind of fun to go and check them all out. It's been a long time since I've been there, but yeah, Tony Paco's is absolutely real. And then they went to Cedar Point and they rode so many cool coasters. I have not been to Cedar Point in a long time, but I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite places as well. So I'm glad they at least got to enjoy some of the roller coasters. You know, they did not ride my favorite, which is the Raptor. So that's another activity. Tell me what your favorite roller coaster at Cedar Point is, or if you go to Kings Island or Busch Gardens or wherever, tell me about your favorite roller coaster. Or if you don't like roller coasters, you can tell me that too. That's fine. So I am going to stop there for today because we are just about at the 20-minute mark. And we will find out what's going to happen in this ice cream truck tomorrow. That's actually probably an excellent way to end the week, is with the the ice cream truck. So I will see you guys tomorrow to find out what happens to Coke and Pep in the Mr. Softy truck. And you guys all have a great day and enjoy the sunshine. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.